Hello, welcome to Footprints. My name is Samuel Addae-Mensah. Today we are here to continue with a conversation we had with Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be delving straight into our conversation. Welcome back from the break. Prof, thank you for your time once again. Before I start this conversation, I would want to introduce this book, Hilla Limman, a biography, scholar, diplomat, and statesman. And this book has one of the most detailed accounts of the story of Dr. Hilla Limman, where he was born, the schools he attended. But for this book, I never knew that Liman first trained as a teacher before, making progress all the way to the university and in France and all the other places that he had to. But this is the book authored by Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah. I am not making a sales pitch, but I'm telling you that if you want a detailed contextual account of the things that happened, how they happened, who were the players and the actors, this is the book. You'll find the book at the EPP Books in Accra and other parts of the country about Hilla Limman, and your eyes go open. Just know that. Prof, so 1979, you were still a lecturer, but you had been introduced to Dr. Hilla Limman, who was still
in the Foreign Service.
Yeah. He had returned to the country not too long before then. And was he not hoping to be posted to other countries, as most of them do?
Yeah, he was. But, let me, to get the perspective right, I'll probably have to start much earlier in the life of Hilla Limman. Because you've mentioned that you wouldn't have known that he had trained as a teacher.
No. I was asking about your entry into
yes,
the
and it's very, very important that I say this. As I said, when I met Liman, I realized how deep he was. His looks did not portray the depth of his knowledge and intellect.
Yeah. He had a very noble and innocent look.
People sometimes say he was a novice in politics. That is far from the truth. The truth of the matter is this. When he finished his training college and started as a teacher somewhere in Tumu, Nkrumah in 52 or 51 visited the Sisala area and needed an interpreter. So Liman was called upon to go and interpret for Nkrumah. And after Nkrumah left, he wrote a letter personally to Liman to thank him for being such a brilliant interpreter during his visit. And the news got round. So the people of the Sisala area said, hey, if you can be an interpreter for Kwame Nkrumah, then you can represent us at the local council. So he was elected as far back as 1952 as a member of the local council. And by 1953, he had become chairman of the local council. So in 1954, before he even left for overseas to go and do his studies, the CPP people in the youth wanted him to be their candidate for the 1954 general elections. This was before independence. And Kwame Nkrumah and the CPP Central Committee said no. Imo Rigala is an older person, a headmaster of a school, had been to Achimota School, very well educated, blah, 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 blah. So he should be given the chance to go. And there were about 3 or 4 other CPP candidates. who also were vying in the primaries. So the CPP Central Committee decided that, look, all the candidates, you go and stand as independents. So if you look at the Gazette of 1954, you will see that in the Tumu constituency, every candidate that year, including even the one who later on became a member of the Northern People's Party, Mumuni Dimbi, they were all independent candidates. Every single one of them was an independent candidate. And Imorigala won the election. Liman came second. So when he lost that election, then Nkrumah called him and said, look, young man, you are just about 23. You'd better try and continue your education. And that's when he left for London, did his A-levels, got into LSE, did economics and history.
At LSE?
At LSE.
Those of you who don't know LSE, just
London School of
see what
Economics.
we are talking about.
The
young ones, they don't understand these things.
London School of Economics, to get there,
It don't be easy.
it's not easy at all. So after that, he left for Sorbonne.
Yeah, in France.
In France, topmost university in
Very much
France.
so. Very much so.
And did the French language, did a high diploma in French. And then you moved to the University of Paris to do the PhD in political science. That's where he met his bosom friend and brother, Paul Ansa. And he got a PhD from there. Paul said they should both come and join the university. But Liman decided to go into the foreign service.
Right.
That's how their careers parted company. But they remained friends.
Yeah.
So at the time that he, 79 came around, he had already tasted politics in Ghana in the pre-independence days.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a novice.
Oh.
And he was a member of the CPP fraternity.
Yeah.
Even before politics was lifted, he used to have some meetings in his house where Dr. Nabila, Kunai Foka, a whole lot of other Northerners, Dr. Andani Andan of the police hospital, they all used to go to that house for intellectual discussions.
Include Mumuni Baumia?
No,
Okay.
no. Mumuni Baumia saw himself as an older person.
Oh, okay.
You know. So when the ban was lifted, Liman decided to contest the elections for parliament on the PNP ticket, not on any other ticket, because he had become a member of the PNP. As I said, he was one of those who drafted the first draft of the manifesto before I joined him, and then we combined the two together. You know.
At this time, you were still lecturing?
Yes, I was still lecturing. Even when I became General Secretary, I continued to lecture. I never left the university. Never. You know, so he was actually on his way to Tumu to file his papers when Imorigala was disqualified by the courts.
So Imorigala
was going to be the presidential
was
candidate.
actually the founder of
Yes.
PNP.
And was going to be the presidential candidate. And then the courts disqualified him.
On the
basis that he had not been cleared by the Azu-Club committee, or he hadn't cleared himself from the Azu-Club committee as a former minister under Nkrumah.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So they had to quickly look for
other people who were caught in this web.
Oh, a lot of them, including Mumuni Baumia.
Yes.
You know. So they had to quickly look for a candidate. And Morigala was told to go and bring 3 Northerners. So he brought Liman, Dr. Andani Andan, who was then in the police hospital as the director of the police hospital, and Mumuni Baumia.
Alaji Mumuni Baumia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Alaji Mumuni Baumia, who is the father of the current vice president, he was a CPP man, but the son is in the other side.
The son is a vice president.
Vice president, yeah. Anyway, but he was instantly disqualified because he had also not cleared himself.
Yes.
It was discovered.
Also as a former
minister of
was it education?
No, he was a minister for local government, I think, for some time. I can't remember the portfolios he held, but he was he held about 2 or 3 ministerial positions before the coup.
But Umaru Igala was education minister at some point.
Yeah, and then he was minister of education. He was also minister of foreign affairs at one time. No, he held very high positions. In 1956, when he lost his seat to Mumuni Dimbie, he became executive chairman of Cocoa Board. And then in 1959, Mumuni Dimbie became a chief. So Umaru Igala stood for the by-election and won his seat back and continued as a minister until the 1966 coup. So anyway, the 3 people who were brought, Mumuni Bamia was disqualified, and then Dr. Andan said, being from the Dagbon stool, from the Andani, if he became he became presidential candidate, it might be divisive. Moreover, there was already Ibrahim Mahama, also from the same family, who was contesting as a presidential candidate for the SDF,
Social Democratic Front.
So Andani said that, look, I'd better not be considered. So Liman was left as the only candidate to be brought to the Central Committee.
And that was your prayer?
Well, it was... really, I didn't think at that time that he was even going to become president. Because all along we were working towards his winning the Tumu seat. Well, there are a lot of stories about his nomination. Anyway, he went to the Congress, he won the seat. It's all in the book.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so he became the presidential candidate. So Kofi Bacha set up the campaign team, of which I became a member.
Who was Kofi Bacha?
Kofi Bacha was the director of communications, or the publicity director.
That the journalist was?
Yes, the journalist. And later on, big publisher, Asta Books. Asta Books. He was a publisher, distributor of school equipment, etc. He was a big businessman. He started by selling charcoal anyway, before he became a big
wow.
But he chaired the campaign committee together with Dr. What's his name even? The one who was IDC.
But let me ask this. Yeah. When Alhaji Umaru Igala presented the 3 northern names, it also brought some disquiet among the Nkrumahs at the time.
I thought that maybe one would be going into too much detail. Yeah. But of course, people had their preferences. Yeah. There were people who were vowing for Dr. Bafo. Botu and Co wanted Bafo. But Bafo's name fell off. If you read Kofi Bacha's book as an independent candidate, if you read Kofi Bacha's book, you will find the sort of things that he said about RP Bafo at the time. There were a few others, but the decision was that the person should be a Northerner.
All right.
And Umaru Igala, being the founder, was mandated by the Central Committee to look for a candidate. So anybody else who had other preferences was out of order, if I may put it that way.
So then we went on to the 79 elections.
And Liman won the first round.
Yeah. But before we get to that, the account in this book lists a number of political parties that were formed.
Yes.
On the announcement of, the opening of lifting of the ban.
Yeah.
And, I noticed that a lot of them were actually CPP people.
Yes. Yes.
Kweku
Boateng, what's his name? Colonel Benasco. John Bilson. Ibrahim Mahama himself.
Yes.
With the TUC people. They had all sort of emerged from the CPP. Even lawyer Hansen.
Johnny Hansen.
Johnny Hansen,
Yeah,
who later
he formed the Something Revolution Party.
Yeah, before he came back to
to
join the CPP. You know, Kweku Boateng, the Ghana Union Movement or whatever it is. There were all sorts of people.
Kweku Boateng popped up again with NCP.
With NCP, yeah. You know.
Wow.
So
and then they by the time the real business started, it had narrowed down to some 12 parties or so. Remember some of them?
Yeah, there was the UNC.
Yes.
The UNC, Pawele. It was a sort of amalgamation of some CPP people from, mainly from the Volta region and parts of the Central region.
Oh, okay.
UNC. And the UP tradition, who were disenchanted with some of the old PFP people.
Okay.
So they formed the UNC. Then there was Action Congress Party, Colonel Benasco. Almost all of them were CPP people, but they wanted to go with the Fante.
Yeah.
And then Third Force Party, Bilson.
But he was a Fante in Kumasi.
Bilson, yes, he was a Fante in Kumasi.
Yeah.
But he was better known as an Ashanti man than even a Fante man, you know, because he had lived in Kumasi virtually all his life.
Was he a medical practitioner?
No.
Okay.
He went into business. Okay. I think he was a medical practitioner. Who went into business very early. Okay. There was a time he was even manufacturing school trunks for school children. His factory was manufacturing some of those things, but he went into business much earlier. So I think the medicine thing probably just...
And then R.P. Bafo also went as an independent.
With the first female vice presidential candidate, Colonel Christine Deborah, who was in the military hospital.
Yes.
She became... she was matron of the military hospital at the time, before Bafo made it.
Wow.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And their symbol was a key. So people used to make fun of them. That I don't want to say.
Yeah, but again, you had Benasco also.
Yeah.
You remember Benasco's running mate?
Benasco's running mate, I can't recall. It's in the book anyway.
Yes.
He was a sort of laid-back person. He wasn't all that well-known publicly. But his name is in the book.
So, Action Congress Party, Third Force Party,
Social Democratic Front.
And the one that we as children used to make fun of was Magda
Monadi,
he had a fish.
Fish, but later on he changed the symbol to a rose or something like that.
Oh, okay.
No, he started with a rose and then changed it to
the fish.
Actually, yes. So they were all there. But there were 4 independents and 6 political parties.
Okay.
Making 10 in all.
Okay. Yeah. And then in between there was a coup.
Yes, 2 weeks to the elections, June 4th. Exactly 14 days to the elections, the coup came.
Wow.
At that time, Justice Kingsley Nyina, who happens to be my brother-in-law, was then the electoral commissioner. And he did a lot of work to make sure that the elections came on, behind the scenes.
When you woke up to the announcement of the coup, how did you react to it?
Well, it came as a surprise to us in a way, because there had been the May 15th uprising, which didn't succeed. So everybody thought that once that had come to pass, no soldier would make any attempt and the elections would go on as planned. Only for 19 days later, for June 4th,
it derailed everything.
Yes, it nearly derailed everything. But somehow, people like Kingsley Nyina, Ben Fojo, who was then with special branch and all that. They managed to do a lot of work to make sure that the elections came in. And many people who have lived through our history say that the 79 elections can arguably go down in history as one of the most transparent, cleanest, quietest election ever held. Devoid of any violence or incidents. And even though at that time we had these wooden boxes as our ballot boxes, nobody complained about any rigging or vote stealing.
So then we had the disruption of June 4th, and then young people who thought they could manage their country came clueless in everything you can think about. That one, I'm saying it's not Prof.
No.
Okay, so we'll take a short break and then we'll come back and continue from when Dr. Hilla Limman became president after the 79 elections. This is Footprints. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. This is Footprints, and I have Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah here. Prof, so we're talking about the 79 elections, and it became a neck-to-neck elections between the PNP, eventually the PNP, and the PFP, which was then led by Victor Usu. So Dr. Liman's PNP wins the election, and what is your own account of the time Liman spent as the president of the Republic of Ghana?
Well, if I say I'm going to talk about that, it will take another whole program.
Okay.
Everything is in the book, but if you read it, and then you read Kwame Nkrumah's book and a few others that have come out, I don't think you can come to any other conclusion but to say that the 81 coup was totally unnecessary and took us back several years.
1981
81, yes. The one that brought
which
truncated Liman's government.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of programs that were started, a lot of things that were being done to really, at the time of the June 4th coup of 79, this country was totally down. In fact, the country had been blockaded, and when they say a country is blockaded, you know what it is.
Persona non grata.
Completely. It took, and yet, normally it wouldn't take less than a year to bring a country from a blockade dead position to normalcy. But within a matter of 2-3 weeks, a lot of international sympathy and flow of oil, flow of a whole lot of other things had already started. So we were able to do a sort of recovery program very quickly. But it wasn't an easy program.
So you think President Liman was a very strong leader?
I would say so. You see, people say that because he didn't kill Rawlings, he was weak.
He didn't kill?
Yes.
But he doesn't have record of killing anyone.
That is the point. In any case, it takes strength to be able to spare a person's life. And he was a Democrat through and through, and was keen on making sure that democracy works in the country.
But
and
again,
if I tell you that there were as many as 19 coup attempts during those 27 months.
Wow.
19, I would say 19 serious coup attempts, which
you
were all
some
nipped
of them,
in
apart from the Rawlings one, which
there was the Fadate one.
In Krabia, a Fadate.
Exactly.
I need to laugh.
There was the Tutungi issue.
Tutungi was in the news.
Yes, the Tutungi affairs. And then there was another one which involved a group of people who claimed that they were working for Rawlings. when in actual fact all the intelligence reports indicated that they were working for themselves. But they tried to contact Rawlings, but the information that we have did not seem to. But there were others that he was supposed to have been behind, like the one involving PV or bringing in arms into the country.
With the
ship and all. It wasn't an easy period at all.
So,
but in spite of that,
you got the feeling that they wanted to remove President Liman at all costs.
They wanted power, nothing more.
And it came from all angles.
It was an overwhelming. Everybody thought that, once Lieutenant Rawlings has done a coup and succeeded, anybody, even a sergeant, can. That's why people like Sergeant Jiwa also later on tried to make a coup.
He was actually a corporal.
Yes.
He was actually a corporal.
Yeah. Sergeant Akatapori, who I had put into Cape Coast University.
Before the coup?
Before the coup. He was a close friend of mine.
Akatapori?
Yes.
Alorga Akatapori?
Alorga Akatapori. I can talk about him, but
Prof, you have every information, so it's sweet. Talking to you is very sweet.
So I put him in Cape Coast University. I met him. I said, look, this young man, you are a very intelligent person. In fact, he was once driving my car and we had an accident. I had a problem with my neck through that accident. And it was my old schoolmate, Dr. Addae-Mensah, who took care of me at military hospital until my neck. The orthopedic surgeon.
Orthopedic surgeon who was in Kolebu.
Yes.
He's actually married to my auntie, so I know him very well.
Okay. Yes. He looked after my neck at the military hospital. Yeah. He was straddling between the
Kolebu
two
and the military, that's
hospitals.
Correct. Yeah.
So I knew Akatapori very, very well. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
But
so
we did a lot of work. Agriculture, industry, the sugar factories that were going to be built by the Meta group of companies from India and East Africa.
Yeah.
A whole lot of things.
But people had issue with that, if my memory serves me correctly.
But it did not even start.
Yeah.
Negotiations were still going on. The only issue they had was that commander should have been rehabilitated, blah, blah, blah.
This commander has caused problems, it's still causing problems.
But it was because I was part of the delegation when we went to Kenya.
Kenya, yeah.
Yes, for this Meta discussion. Yeah. Even though I remained behind in Nairobi, because it was during the OAU conference, and Liman went to Kakamega and the other sugar growing areas alone with the Minister of Agriculture, Anda, at that time. So there were a whole lot of projects that were in the pipeline. But unfortunately, we could not.
Tell me, within this period,
there
was this thing about a loan conversation. Is it Chaveli loan or something?
Oh, that was even before Liman became.
Oh, that was.
It was before he became a president.
Okay.
When the June 4th coup took place, the little I know about it, when the June 4th coup took place and the elections were finished, the soldiers who were involved in June 4th, some said they should leave. Rawlings and others thought that they should stay on. But if they were to leave, those who wanted to leave needed to be rehabilitated. They were still in power. Liman had won the elections, but he had not become president. So he couldn't use state money to go and rehabilitate them. So some of the older Nkrumah government people said, look, during Nkrumah's time, we used to have a friend called Chiavelli, who had investments in various factories and businesses in this country. We can go and see him to get some money so that these people will get out of the way. And then we can assume power as a civilian government. And that's what Kobeduse, Kwesiama, and one or two, Okuchu Bekwin,
Yes.
went and facilitated. So it was before he even took over. And there was no other way but to take a private loan to rehabilitate. And some people say that, I don't know, but some people say that in spite of all the noise, the one who said he wouldn't go, he himself, he got some of that money for the rehabilitation.
Yes. So because they have to be rehabilitated.
They have to be rehabilitated.
Back to barracks.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that is all there is to the Chiavelli thing.
Okay.
But, of course, we are doing that sort of politics.
Yeah,
still,
I mean, I was young, but I still remember that very much. So
and they made a whole mountain out of it.
Oh, yeah, it was big.
It had nothing to do with Liman as president.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but he disbursed it.
Well, even that, he wasn't president.
Okay. Okay, I mean, so for you,
Yeah.
what were some of the highest points under Liman's government?
Well, look, that man was a workaholic. There was not one weekend that you would find him in Accra. He was traveling around the country, not just cutting sword and he was actually going to inspect, see problems on the ground. And at that time, we didn't have four-wheel drives.
We have Peugeot.
Peugeot 504 made in Nigeria.
Yeah, the caravan.
Yes. No, it wasn't even a caravan.
Oh, the salon.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were one or two caravans, yes.
We call it £1.
£1. And, I used to travel in his car once. I remember there's a story I tell in the book, which is on the lighter side.
Yeah.
I think I should tell it.
Yeah.
He was going to go to Kumasi and then to the north. And I had gone to the castle to see him off, and then I was to follow later. I preferred to go in my car. Incidentally, I became General Secretary in 1980.
Okay.
Not in 79.
Okay.
1980. But before then,
this is after
Liman had become president.
Okay.
But before then, I was still helping with his writing of his speeches, etc. So I used to sit in the car with him, to travel with him. But most of the time, I went in my own private car after the official entourage had left. I wasn't using any official car. I was still teaching in the university. So I couldn't leave on Thursdays as they used to. I used to leave either Thursday evening or early Friday morning when I had no classes to join them. But that day, I went to the castle, and just before they left, he said, no, I should come with him because he wanted to discuss something with me in the car. So I had to take my luggage from my car and put it in this. And just before I was waiting for them to leave before I would go to the gents to sort of make myself comfortable and then set off. But then he said I should join him. So I went and sat in the car. Before we could get to Nsaom, my bladder was bursting. I didn't know how to tell the presidential motorcade to stop. So we went on and on and on. We passed this Bunsu Junction. I couldn't hold it any longer. So I asked him, Mr. President, can the presidential motorcade be stopped when it is already on the move? You know what his answer was? Why? You want to pee? So I said, yes, Mr. President. So they sent a signal immediately, and the motorcade stopped. So he got out first and made a beeline for the bush. So everybody followed. I had asked for it, but he got out first. So we all rushed.
Yeah.
And, everybody became comfortable until we got to Kumasi. So I write that in the book and say, presidents after all, human beings.
Yeah, human beings, that's all. So then...
But it was an enjoyable period to work with him. But also a very difficult period.
You made friends with some of the ministers at the time. Who are your own favorites? Your personal favorites?
Oh, well, of course, I had known George Bennett from school.
School, yes.
Nabila,
Professor Nabila.
I had met him. I worked close with him, very closely with him. Anda was my next door neighbor on the Legon campus. Agbesi, regional minister, and then later Minister of Agriculture.
Bernard became a minister under Liman, right?
Yes, he was a commissioner under Champon, and then a minister under Liman. He was Minister of Fuel and Power, before he became Minister of Finance. And then Uftego, who was deputy to Bennett before he became the substantive minister in the Fuel and Power Ministry. You know, I went to the Ministry of Energy, and his picture was not even there as a minister.
Who?
Uftego.
What, they forgot? Or they don't
They
have
said they didn't even know.
Well, we are telling them, please put it there because it's too late. So, and then on you get to 81. Yeah,
so the coup came, and I was then at Takwa visiting my grandmother. Fortunately, my grandmother lived to be 102 before she died, so I had enough time to look after her for all that she did for me as a child. So I was at Takwa over a Christmas period when the coup came. And being an Nzima, it was not easy to cross over to Ivory Coast. Her brothers were there, and I crossed the border with no problem. We got to Ivory Coast. I stayed in Ivory Coast for about 10 months before I got a fellowship from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany, and went to the University of Erlangen, Institute of Pharmacy and Food Chemistry.
To go back to school?
No, to be a lecturer, not a lecturer, a researcher there. So I was on that fellowship as a fellow of the Humboldt Foundation, just like the Fulbright Fellowship that people go to American universities. No, but when I was in Abidjan, I took the opportunity to take a certificate course in French. I had done French at O-level in Achimota, but I decided to learn it even further. So I learned the French language in Abidjan.
So that the first Zema coup happened at the time when you were in Takwa?
Yes.
And then you heard,
I heard
on the radio that they were arresting people.
Yeah.
And you ran away.
They started mentioning names, but they never mentioned my name, surprisingly.
You were not troublesome.
They never mentioned my name.
So some of the ministers was...
Even until I came back, they never mentioned my name.
Was Kankam da Costa a minister?
Yes. He was the Central Regional Minister.
I remember that,
yes.
Central Region.
He was the Central Regional Minister. He was a friend until he died. He was also one of my favorite friends, very close friend. In fact, I still go to his foreign exchange shop. Whenever my children bring me $1 or $2 to go and change, that's where I go to.
Oh, nice.
So Kankam was a very close friend also.
Okay, so Côte d'Ivoire, and then
Germany. Germany, I learned the German language also. Fortunately, my two brothers were still there. They had finished their PhDs. One had finished medicine, he was a surgeon, and the other also was finishing his PhD in civil engineering. So it was easy for me to
So how many years did you have to stay out of the country?
Well, in total, about 8 years. 1 year in Abidjan, 2 years in Germany, and 5 years in Kenya. From Germany, I came to the Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Nairobi, for 5 years.
That's a long time.
And then Akila Kwasoya told me, look, Ivan, it's time to come home. Your department is collapsing. So come and take it up.
So which year would this be?
1990. So 1990, So from 82 to 90, I was out of the country.
So at the time when you wrote those books, which years did you author those books?
The O-level was, that was all before 1981.
Oh, okay.
And then I wrote the Kenyan ones when I was in Kenya. When I was in Nairobi. And then the university ones after my return from Nairobi.
Okay. Yeah. So in which year did you come back to
1990.
1990.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1990
Well, before then I had come home.
Okay.
Because nothing...
You were testing whether they were still...
Nothing was found against me or any of Liman's ministers. Nobody. Yeah. And if you read Ahoy's book, you will find that they did a thorough, investigation of all those who were in the PNP government, and nothing was found against anybody.
I mean, look, it underscores the point that the 81 coup was one totally useless waste of time for everybody. It just wasted everybody's time, including the people who did it themselves. And only time has proven this one. So 1990, Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah comes back into Ghana. Here we want to take a short break. This is Footprint. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. This is Footprint, and I'm here with Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah. Now, Prof, so you are back in Ghana in 1990, and obviously back into the University of Ghana. How did they treat your departure?
Oh, well, everybody understood why I left, so there was no problem.
You've never been a troublesome person.
There was no problem. And it was a Vice Chancellor then, Akila Kwasoya, who said, look, I should come. And when I was in Nairobi, I was there as an associate professor.
Okay.
But I came back to Legon as a full professor. I said, look, I'm going to apply to come back with the position that I think I deserve. So I put in my papers. I mean, my CV spoke for itself.
That's
anyway.
Correct, and you proved it anyway.
So I came as a full professor. 1 year later, I was appointed head of department.
Of chemistry.
Of chemistry. Then the following year, I won the election to become the dean. At that time, deans were elected. I won it handsomely to become dean of the faculty. But surprisingly, though I had become dean, Professor George Bennett, who had become the vice chancellor, refused to relieve me of my position as head of department.
So you played.
So for a whole year, I was head of department of chemistry and dean of the faculty of science. It wasn't easy.
Wow.
I will write letters as head of department to myself as dean of the faculty. It was difficult, but I managed to pull through. He said, no. I will appoint somebody in my own time.
Wow.
So I was dean and head at the same time for another year before he appointed a new head of department. And then I continued as dean until 1996 when the vice chancellorship issue came up. Originally, I really didn't want to apply. But about 24 hours to the closing date, Professor George Hagen came to my office at the and said, look, everybody is saying you should apply. I said, but it's only 24 hours to the closing date. He said, no. So I had to spend that night writing my mission statement, my vision, and everything, one night. I said, but they said tomorrow is the closing day. He said, I've talked to the registrar, Ibodania, and he says tomorrow means that tomorrow until midnight. So, I sent in my application in time. And we started from a field of 11 people. We were whittled down to 4 by the search committee. And the 4 were interviewed.
Remember them?
I remember them. I can mention, Iram Addae was one of them. Mills was one of them. and I think Professor Anyudo was another, and then myself. We went for the interview. And then 2 of us were recommended to council. That was Mills and I. We were recommended to the University Council for one of us to be appointed for council to vote. Now, there too, I've heard people, including my good friend, in one of his interviews, that the vote was, I beat Mills by 1 vote. It's not true.
Who said that?
Kwame Nahoy said it in one of the interviews. I think the interview with Bernard Avle.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. And others have said this, but today I would like to take the opportunity to correct that thing. There is a story behind it. The vote was 7-5 with 1 abstention. The council members with vote were 13. 6 of them were government nominees. So many people seem to assume that at that time all the 6 government nominees voted for the other person,
Mills.
who was Mills, and the non-government nominees voted for me. But it wasn't so.
Okay.
There was one who abstained for what he considered to be good reason. And in fact, later on, he told people that if he had voted according to his conscience, he would have voted for me, and it would have been 8-5. But it was 7 in my favor, 5 for Mills, and 1 abstention, one of the government nominees. So I became Vice Chancellor, and the rest is history. Yeah.
In 96?
Yes. And I had 2 terms up to 2002. Yeah.
Wow. So Vice Chancellor, University of Ghana, was the ultimate.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges, experiences?
A lot of challenges. The university was down to the last penny. We had no strength, no financial backbone. Things were.
Your time was the Mobrowa.
Yes,
the Mobrowa.
In fact, we came to the conclusion, and I think I will always be proud of the paradigm-shifting, innovative way that we overcame our problem. That was when we dreamt of this cost-sharing thing, and I was then the chairman of the committee of vice chancellors, and I said, look, we can't go on like that as a university or universities in Ghana. We have to do something about it. Those who are benefiting have to contribute something. So we made that proposal, and I did a comprehensive paper which I presented to the Council of State. And they then invited me to go and make a verbal presentation in defense of what I had written. You know, when people see what I wrote these days, they say, were you that brave? You were able to write all this in very, very, very strong language. But they saw eye to eye with me. So they talked to the president, who was Jerry Rawlings at the time. He gave me the green light and instructed Spio Gabra, who was my junior by several years in Achimota School, was the minister, and Ibn Chambers, who was my tutorial student when he was a student in Sabaho. He instructed them that they should give me all the support to push through the policy
of cost sharing, which was resisted by students.
Which was resisted. But interestingly, those who were leading the protest, they had all paid their fees. So,
isn't that always the case?
So I leaked that information to the students, and that's what killed.
Who was the SRC president then?
He was called Doona.
Doona.
Though he was called Doona, he was an Nzima.
Oh, okay.
The mother was Nzima and the father was from.
Osu.
No.
Still Nzima.
No, the father was from the the Dangwe area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think the donors are from the Dangwe area.
Those two people to have the owners.
Okay. So I called him to my office and we spoke on Zuma.
And that was it?
That was it. And I told him that if you don't stop that thing, I'm going to leak it that you have paid your fees.
Because that was a strong one.
Oh, yes.
The Mobrowa campaign, Mobrowa process, they used to do the process.
Yes.
Mobrowa, yeah.
But you see, it was only 5% of what it cost to look after a student in the university. We didn't want to overburden parents.
Because we didn't know.
And we wanted to sort of establish the principle of contributing towards your own education. But we knew that there were really genuinely people who could not afford. So we also established a needy students program to help those who really couldn't pay. And we also had a flexible payment regimen. So anyway, we were able to establish it. So if the universities have survived, it is because of that policy being implemented. Now, it's a cost sharing which is virtually keeping all the universities going. Yeah. Without that,
they are paying fees.
Oh yes, we would have had no universities.
And then they have this category called private students.
Private students who that came later on when we realized that the 10% quota for foreign students was not being fully utilized.
Okay.
So we said, look, any Ghanaian who wanted to go to medical school or any of the other, who would be prepared to pay the full fees, albeit in cedis, we will give you part of the, but you must have the requisite qualification first. Only if you don't gain admission to your choice, like medicine, administration, law, etc., which were very competitive, then you could come in as a private fee-paying student.
So, Prof, looking back, how many years you left the University of Ghana in 2002?
Yeah.
And I'm sure after that you've been doing.
I've been doing also. I still mentor students.
Yes.
Well, apart from my life in the university, I also did consultancy work for World Health Organization. I have been on their Quality Assurance of Medicines Committee since 1986. And I even chaired the committee on several occasions.
Wow.
I was a rapporteur and then later on chairman. I've been on the WHO African section, the Research and Development Committee of the WHO Afro section. I've been on that also for about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. There too, I chaired the committee for some time.
When you look back, 18 years?
Yes, since I retired,
What's your own take on the state of our universities generally?
There are problems, especially with numbers. Sometimes I get worried how we are going to cope next academic year when the free SHS people. But I believe that, there are people who are competent handling the university's affairs now. So just as we found a way out during our time, I believe that they will also find a way out, provided that the vice chancellors will be given the chance to think things through without too much micromanagement from outside. Because these are thinking people. But if they are faced with a lot of dictation from outside, then we will have problems. So that's the advice that I will leave as a veteran.
Very much.
Take it or leave it. Brand me as you wish.
Whoever.
I don't care.
You have done your bits.
Yes.
And
those who have taken over should be given a free hand
to
do their bit. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, so we've been having a wonderful chat with Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah. It's been wonderful, I know, and you have stayed glued to this program. Thank you so much. It's been Footprint. My name is Samuel Atta-Mensah. See you next time.